All right, so now that I have the eNote 2, we're gonna look at every single difference between Penstar's two tablets here. First, we're gonna talk about build quality. And honestly, this is gonna be nearly identical for both of these, but there are some differences. First, let's talk about these front covers. So the new one, as you can see, is not a dual tone design or anything like that. And it is a bit of a thicker material, or at least stiffer and probably more premium feeling of a leather. And this one is a lot more flexible and cheaper feeling probably. Although I will miss the kind of metallic Penstar logo. I always loved that. It was a lot more visible and it shines in the light a little bit better. And this one's a bit more hidden, which some people might like the subtler logo. I mean, it's cleaner, but I kind of like the look of this one. So that's the differences with the covers here. With the actual devices themselves, there's very, very few differences. So let's look at them from a top-down point. And as you can see, yeah, they're the exact same shape, exact same design here on the sides, especially. You really can't tell a difference besides the newer one being a slightly darker shade of gray than the previous one. And really, I think that's mostly just to match up with their appropriate covers a bit better. This is like a darker, almost bluish gray. This is a lighter gray. Then the only other difference is this back panel here, as far as just build quality. This, I thought, was always a metal panel, but I'm pretty sure it is a glass panel. I think someone sent a picture of it being shattered once. So this is actually glass here, as far as I know. It's likely a textured glass as well. But yeah, as you can see, it has this grain to it. I'm honestly just not 100% sure what the material is of this. Maybe it actually is metal this time, and they changed that so it wouldn't shatter or something, but it definitely can scratch easier. As you can kind of see from the light catching it here, there's definitely a scratch right along this area. Let's see if I can get that a little closer to the camera too. So yeah, it's there. It's a pretty deep scratch that I think I just got from throwing it in my backpack. So maybe just put it in like a pouch in your bag or something, and just keep that in mind, because these folios for these devices only cover the front half, they don't cover the back. So the fact that the back is a bit more scratchable might be a downside. And then as far as weight, there actually is a difference here as well. So I typically get 405 grams when measuring this Penstar eNote device, where the old one is 394 grams. So 11 grams difference here, not much at all. I could barely tell the difference, but it's there. And I think that's probably due to a larger battery in the newer device. This has a 6,500 milliamp hour battery, where this just has a 6,000 milliamp hour battery. So 500 more milliamp hours here, which could be the extra weight that we see. And then as far as thickness, it's about 5.5 millimeters thick on the new one here. And I get closer to 5.4 on the old one, but I believe they were both marketed at 5.5. I don't even think there's a full millimeter of difference between the two, but I think technically the new one is slightly thicker. So they didn't really slim it down, they didn't really make it lighter. In fact, probably worse on both those accounts, but not in any way that I feel is dramatic. So just because I found these differences, I don't think they're deal breaker differences by any means. They're virtually identical. But what isn't virtually identical is what's on the inside. Also, for reference, the eNote 2 will always be on the left side and the eNote 1 will always be on the right side, because yeah, they do look really stinking similar. So just keep that in mind. New version here, old version here throughout the whole video. So I'm not gonna spend too much time on the specs, but there are some pretty major differences here. So the old Penstar eNote ran on Android 11. This new one, Android 14, which is gonna become very crucial to something that we'll talk about even later in this video. And this is also running PenstarOS 2. This is how they're marketing it. It's not that much different than PenstarOS 1, but there are some nice features added here. And then when it comes to storage, this has 128 gigabytes versus only 32 on the old version, and double the RAM with 4 gigabytes versus just 2. And it doesn't show this here, but this one has a quad-core processor and the new one has an octa-core processor. So like double, if not more than double, with basically every internal spec here. And the last hardware thing that is different between them is the screens themselves. So this is the updated PureView screen at 300 PPI versus 227 PPI on the old version. So this is the same note open on both devices. And as you can kind of see, the newer one is a little bit sharper, a little bit more refined, and this was written on the old device, but I think it still looks a little bit higher quality than the old one. Not a lot of differences there. You won't be able to notice this in every circumstance, but it is a noticeable difference depending on what you do. The more PDFs and images and things like that you load onto this device, or other side-loading apps that you load onto this device, are just gonna look even better, which side-loading apps is now way easier, but we'll get to that in just a moment. Next, I wanna just show the brush at a thick setting. You may not be able to tell on this screen super well, but there is definitely less jaggedness and individual pixels that you can spot on these lines versus the old one. There's a little bit more of that jaggedness and pixelation that you can see. So again, not gonna be a perfect way to test these out, but there is a difference in the screen resolution, and it's just nice to see this get up to 300 PPI, as it was one of the last ones, besides all the remarkable tablets, which they can get away with it apparently, that have not moved to 300 PPI out of all the major e-ink brands. So now I'm gonna move into software differences. And first, I just wanna go to the apps section. So if you look at even just the system apps, there are some differences here. The first row, exactly the same, but then you get the second row, there is now a voice to text app where calendar used to be. And if you go further down, there is now a gallery app as well. And now there's no more My Account app, it's just accessed from the settings menu, which I think is totally fine. It was kind of redundant anyways, because you could also get that through here as well. I still find that the settings app is also kind of redundant because there's a whole tab for it, but hey, that's here as well. And the manual app is here, and it's here as well, but you can also access it right from the settings. So that's another change to the software. But yeah, let's look at the new apps. So voice to text, this was the voice to text note that I made during the first impressions video. If you have to start speaking when it's recording, it does a really, really accurate transcription of what you're saying. And it even puts in punctuation and different question marks if you're wondering, why is this even happening? There it goes. It's really good at interpreting your voice and how it should write it out. I have no real issues with it. And then you also have a section down here to actually take some notes. I don't know why it defaults to the pen being just massive, but oh, maybe it's just the last pen I was in. I wasn't a big brush before. So let's just go to the ballpoint pen at 2. This is a good test. So just a really nice option to have. This is something you'll have to pay for. They give you like 7 hours of free transcription, but after that point, you'll have to pay for more usage of it, as it's not free to do that kind of thing. So an interesting app that they now have installed for you. Some of you are never going to use it, but hey, at least it's there. And then the gallery is just what it sounds like. It's an app for viewing images and whatnot. I have not seen it be able to sync to like Google Photos or anything like that, so I'm not really sure how useful this will be for me. But if you do want to store some images on this device, it's a place to access them. And then, in my opinion, the even bigger change is when you go to installed apps. So on the previous eNote, all these apps are what I sideloaded. And that is still gonna be true for any sideloaded apps will show up in this tab. But none of these did I have to really sideload. The Kindle app was pre-installed, I believe, and so was Microsoft 365. But you could tap on the More Apps App Store and see all these different reading apps that you could download. And this isn't even all of them, there's another page. You have these news apps here. You have these tool apps, which I installed Local Send right away, which is a great way to send any file to any device on the same network. Fantastic tool. And then some of the Office 365 apps, some learning apps, and what I think is even more amazing is other app stores is right here to install. I would have loved to see them just have the Google Play Store right here too. That would have been amazing, but there's probably more setup involved with that one in particular, but you can get that same up to down app store like I have right here, or you can get the APK Pure, which I know a lot of people use that one, or Aurora Store. So these are great side loading options that you don't really even have to side load anymore to get to them, which is fantastic. I love having more access to those apps. These are the ones I installed right now. I definitely am gonna get the Bible app on here too, because I think that's gonna be awesome for this kind of stuff. But yeah, I'm a huge fan of the More Apps App Store. Another random software change is there's now this refresh settings option, and it is just one toggle in here that is a back to home refresh. I feel like they could just add the toggle to this screen, but that's just my opinion. And it does exactly what you think it will do. I mean, you should have just seen it there too. As soon as I go back to the home screen, it just does a refresh every time, where it doesn't do that on the old version. So yeah, if you want that to basically have a clean home screen every time you go back, that is a setting you can certainly turn on. I don't think I need to have that, at least right now, so I'm gonna keep it off. So there's now a reset button to reset all your Wi-Fi and Bluetooth settings. If you want to do that, there wasn't that actual button here before, so that's another change. But otherwise, everything else is pretty much the exact same. On the previous version of the device, you didn't have any way to do like a dark mode or something. There is that option now, or a reading mode for just the reader app will be dark mode. But yeah, it's an option, and I appreciate having options, but I don't really see how a dark mode on an e-ink screen looks that great. I think the light mode looks so much better. There's also an input method tab that doesn't have a space there. It looks a little bit like it's not supposed to be there because there's no other option for input. My theory is that is for the Pro devices that are coming, because I got to see at CES a little preview of the eNote 2 and the eNote Pros and Pro Mini, and those both had touch capabilities. So I wonder if in this input method you can actually change if it's pen only or touch in that. That's a theory. It could have nothing to do with that. It could be input for something else completely, but I wonder if it's going to be referring to that new tablet coming. But yeah, so that's why I think Android 14 on this device is really, really handy, because now with having so much easier access to other apps, they're also going to be way more compatible with this version of Android than Android 11. All right, so now I'm going to show you guys the Notes app, and there's not a lot of differences here. As you can see, all the options up top look the same. The pen tool options all look the same. The only change I can notice is that there's now like an orange and a rose and aqua was there. A rose and an orange color added to the color options. Again, none of these colors are going to show up actually on this screen, but you can pick them for when you export it off the Penstar eNote, and you'll see them on either your phone, your companion app, or just as an exported PDF. They both have the Scribble AI erase, and I have had mixed success with this function, but it's something that you can totally have on if you don't want to flip it around to erase and you just want to scribble something out. And they can both access the button settings right from here, which I still think is awesome. This has you be able to select the pen type. This pen B6 has 3 buttons. And I know that that is for the Pro device that's coming, because I've seen that pen and it does have 3 buttons, which is also insane. I think it's funny that they're just like, what can we do to make a pen Pro? Let's add more buttons, which they're not really wrong. It totally does. They can basically do every function. So you can have it be an eraser, marker, and hand touch, which I still don't really know what that does. Or you can have it be a close, so you can get out of the note that you're in or whatever. So that's super cool that you can set that up here, showing that the Pro Pen is probably compatible with the eNote 2, but not the eNote 1. And then if you tap the 3 dots, these options are basically identical. There is just a change to the wording. So where it used to be called Table of Contents here, it is now called Add Catalog. So honestly, I thought Table of Contents was maybe a little more clear, but that's fine. It is a minor difference. It defaults to the page number of your page. Makes sense. But I think you can actually make a catalog entry for page 1 if you wanted to. So you don't have to do it for the page you're particularly on, but I think that's what makes the most sense. This one always just defaulted to the page you were on. It did not let you change that in any way, shape, or form. So a bit more functionality here. And you can add it, and they show up in the same spot. So contents, and there they are. So yeah, the exact same functionality. Literally the only difference is the name. And you can add more from the menu here. I actually just noticed that difference. But other than that, just the naming difference. If you go to the button menus, there is some small differences here as well. Some are just different wording, like set is now just buttons, and erase all is clear notes. Then if you go to the page 2 of everything, there's a few more options here. So you have a bookmark function that you can do now, and a mark screen, which I'm honestly not 100% sure what that does, and con read, don't know what that does either, and then rotating +90 and -90. So I think several of those functions only work within the Reader app, but I don't actually have a PDF file yet on this device. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna use local send from my MacBook and send it to the eNote 2 here. What local send will do is they'll give you a silly adjective and a fruit name by default. So that's your name initially. You can always change that to something else though. So even manually, it's just not doing it. Oh.
What? It's just there now.
And it works like that. What you didn't see is us struggling to get this connected for a time, but now it works. So not sure why that was, but we got it and it's transferring it over now. It should be as simple as it just works, but it doesn't always do that. But now that it is transferring, oh, there it is, it's done. And I have that in my downloads folder. So let's go check that out. So if we go to my downloads, there's that PDF file, and now we have opened it in the Reader app. And honestly, I have no idea what conread and mark screen actually do. I haven't gotten them to work in any of the apps or do a function, but hopefully for the full review, I will have determined what all these functions do, and I'll show them off to you guys then. So that's the differences between these two eNote devices. Very, very similar look-wise, very similar writing feel. So I don't even show the writing differences here because there isn't really any. But there is definitely some changes under the hood, and there is definitely some better improvement when it comes to third-party app management. Something that I did notice though with the third-party apps is with the PenstarOS 2, you actually get this optimized section for how the screen refreshes when in a third-party app. So it defaults to clearness, minimal ghosting, good display suitable for flipping through images and text. You can go normal, which is a good display, response speed is slightly low, and it's still more for images and text. Then you have quick, which if you're doing like a web browser or something like that, you might want quicker, or high speed, which has basically no flickering and it's still more for reading plain text. And then fast, which is more for scrolling images, text, and videos. So I guess fast is more what you want on a web browser or watching a YouTube video if you dare try to take on that challenge with this. But as you can see, it's definitely playing this animation a lot smoother on the fast mode here, but there is way more ghosting because it's not really doing small refreshes every time it goes. And you can see it's kind of ghosting a trail of itself as it's doing the animation, but it's playing the animation smoother. So you can actually adjust that and pick what you want and how you want your screen to function. As you can see, this is a much more choppy animation, but it is a little less ghosted, maybe. But yeah, that's some of the changes you can make with the new version of PenstarOS, which I think is huge for third-party app capabilities. Now, a big question you might be wondering is, am I recommending anyone who's got an eNote to upgrade to the eNote 2? Not really, unless you really need better third-party app support. If that's like been a holdup for you or something that you do every single time you open your eNote device, okay, you may want to consider it. But if that's only something you use on an occasion and you've already done some side loading like I have, it's probably not a big enough difference in how it handles them to warrant the upgrade. And I don't think the processor differences have changed my everyday using of these devices at all. It seemed pretty much on par with each other, maybe a little snappier over here, but nothing revolutionary. Now, I haven't done my full review on the eNote 2 yet, so maybe that will change after that review. But as of right now, I don't see a reason to upgrade from the eNote 1 to the eNote 2. But if you haven't gotten a Penstar device now is the time. I think the eNote 2 does have some pretty nice upgrades over it. And if you're looking at an eNote 1 for like a discounted price or an eNote 2, unless the discount is like half off, honestly, I'd go for the eNote 2. I think there's enough upgrades here that warrant spending a little bit more money. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a comment and a like, and definitely subscribe to the channel. It really does help us grow and reach more people and for me to make more content at higher quality and faster. If you're curious about the equipment I use, it's all gonna be linked in the description down below. And if you want to support this channel more directly, you can go to grafxtech.com and get some merch for yourself. It all goes right to this channel to support us making even more videos, even more content, and even more sponsored free content, which is honestly my favorite content to make. And as always, have a great rest of your day.